couple months ago, and I feel like this number is aspirational at this point, although we're still sure as heck aiming for it, I'll tell you that. The total head count of 86 is much lower than you're used to us reporting out on in the past. The reasoning behind this is we looked at the trend forecasted numbers that we were provided, and we accounted for the fact that we're offering 54% of the sections. So we did look at fall of 2019 numbers, and we applied a 54% ratio to kind of get us in a ballpark. And then we tried to account for some other factors that we see happening. One of the things that I'll talk about in a couple minutes is the fact that we don't have our normal cohort of students that's here for us to talk to daily and to promote the Newark campus, and for us to tell them and remind them that it's time to register. So we're up against some challenges for the fall, and that is where we came up with this number for a total head count to aim for 86. Traditionally, our campus has run 2/3 full-time to about 1/3 part-time, so we kind of applied that ratio and that thinking when we came up with these numbers. So this is where we're headed for fall, and we're hoping that we're on the right path to get there. What we've been doing to try to make that happen are recruitment efforts. We've been working with the other campus center directors in Geneva and Victor, as well as our director of admissions and our director of marketing, to put out a recruitment schedule, and we review those on a quarterly basis. So some of the events that we've been doing on this recruitment calendar are individual admissions appointments. So we offer 6 times weekly that a student can sign up for, that they can come into the Newark campus and meet either one-on-one directly with myself or with our assistant director. We provide them with a tour. They're able to bring one guest with them. We socially distance, but they're able to see a tour of the campus, talk to one of us, talk about their goals, talk about how Newark campus can fit into those, and just have a nice one-on-one appointment. So students can register through Slate right on the website, so it's easy to find, and it's also easy for us to promote. We had 2 dates in March, and again, we have 2 more planned in June, where we do that same thing, but we ramp it up a little bit, where we offer 5 appointments per day on each of those 2 days in that month, and work with admissions and marketing to do targeted promotion. So we were able to, our marketing department sent out directly targeted emails signed from the campus center director specifically to populations that might be interested in attending the Newark campus. And then from there, hopefully those students will log on and go to Slate and register for one of our times. Also, we held a campus center webinar in conjunction with the other 2 directors. We really just promoted campus centers and FLCC locations as a whole. So we talked about, the intimate environment that you find at a campus center, knowing your faculty, knowing your staff, just what it's like to be at a campus center. And we offered that in an evening time slot, hoping to capture, more people that could attend an online virtual event in the evening. So we had one of those in March, and we do have another summer webinar scheduled as well. And then a goal for this year was really to engage the Wayne County Guidance Counselor Group directly. So I had created a Wayne County Guidance Counselor kind of listserv that I've been working with, and we scheduled 2 meetings, a fall meeting and a spring meeting. Both were virtual. We were very happy that we had participation from 9 out of our 11 school districts in Wayne County that attended at least one, but most attended both the fall and the spring meeting. And we kind of were able to give an overview of what the Newark campus is, but also some just general institutional information about FLCC as a whole, and engage that group directly. So they seemed thankful for it, and with it being virtual, they didn't have to travel anywhere or get permission to leave their workstation. Very easy for them to tune into those meetings. So that was well received. So these are some of the things that we're doing to try to hopefully hit the numbers that we want for fall. The last two things that I want to talk to you about, I think every time we meet, we talk about what are the challenges of the Newark campus and then what are the opportunities. And certainly, you know, one challenge you've all heard me share before it is the identity of the Newark Campus Center. That continues to be a challenge. What are we known for? We don't have identified programs like the Victor Campus benefits from, for an example. So we continue to struggle with this, and I think it's being exaggerated a little bit during the pandemic as well, as far as not having certain populations of programs that are being driven to our campus specifically. So this continues to be an issue. We continue to work with department chairs and others to try to see what programming we can get and engage out here at Newark. Promotion of an in-person location is starting to be, or has been, interesting during a pandemic. It will continue to be interesting in a post-pandemic world now that students have really learned to engage online, embraced remote learning in so many ways. You know, we went through a year where people weren't coming to locations, and the reality that our job was to promote a location and 4 walls of this center. So certainly we've been looking for other ways to promote FLCC as a whole and the Newark Campus Center services, even if students aren't attending face-to-face or in our building, for example. The sync rooms, you know that we have 2 rooms that are capable of camera technology in them, but we have the one that really is the full sync setup here at Newark. And those rooms were made to connect main campus and the campus centers, and they were ideal for students who wanted to attend in Newark because it was closer, or they just found it more intimate, or for whatever reason, they want to attend here, but they want to take a class that can only be found on main campus. And that was working beautifully. These are not in demand as much anymore when we do our course schedules. And the reasoning is because a student can now sit at home and log into a remote course and still get that same opportunity. So a little bit, you know, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, right? So students are getting the courses that they need. That's the most important thing. We're educating students, but it may or may not be the same demand for those sync rooms here at the campus centers that we once had. Some of our partners, such as PTech, for example, are experiencing their own pandemic challenges. So certainly we're still working with PTech to have classes on our course schedule, and they are scheduled to come back here in the fall with a couple of math courses. But as you can imagine, they were not here taking courses this past year. They, like all K through 12 environments, have challenges with the pandemic, with transporting students, and lots of different things that have come up for K through 12 during the pandemic. So when we work with partners, you know, we've just been patient. We know that we have goals with each of our partners, and everybody's in a different spot because of the pandemic. Our course schedule mix is always a challenge as well. So what I mean when I put this one out there is it's not necessarily just the same as our identity, where we don't have necessarily direct identified programs, but this is just what mix of courses out of the courses that we can have here do we put here, and when and why, and trying to get the right mix. So we do a lot of work with the department chairs to try to get the right mix here. It's challenging, and with the pandemic, as you know, I said we're having 26 course sections here. You can imagine anytime we have 26 course sections, it's tough to cater to a lot of students that have a lot of different majors and get the right mix of courses here. So we try to continue to do that, but you know, there are limitations with the number of course sections that we're offering to get the right mix for students. And then the last challenge to draw your attention to would be just that we don't have our cohort of students here right now. That's always how we've thrived. It's always how we've gotten registrations, is through academic advising. We've always done, you know, very intensive recruitment with our own current class. You know, we've been known to really know the students and say, you know, to a specific student walking down the hall, hey, have you registered yet? You know, let's get an appointment for you tomorrow. Let's do this. So we're trying to come up with different ways to reach out to who would have been our population, but it's challenging at times to know who would have come to classes at the Newark campus had we been open this year like normal, and who wouldn't have. So, you know, we're trying to address those things, but these are the things that are on our mind and that we just want you to know about as challenges for our campus center. And lastly, of course, we want to tell you about the opportunities we have. We have great opportunities here. The Silver Hill Tech Park that we're sitting in right now is just being beautified. It's being expanded on. IEC Electronics is here now. Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES is here with their PTech program and another program called Career Creations. And just recently this week, even after I submitted these slides to Janet, this tech park changed its name to Silver Hill Technology and Education Park. And that's because we're here and our other educational partners are here. So it's being noticed in Wayne County that we have a presence here. And, you know, we're definitely part of the expansion here at this tech park. Another opportunity is we've been working with Workforce and Career Solutions with Todd Sloan and his group on non-credit offerings. Even at a time where we didn't have a whole lot of course sections going on, Todd was able to offer Excel classes here for a company that needed training. That was very well received. So we're trying to up our non-credit choices, and we're working with that group on getting community education courses going again as well. Our high flex modality options, we hope that that will be an opportunity for Newark. We have one high flex course running in the fall right now, but as more of our faculty, you know, decide to maybe move to high flex, we're hoping that some of them will want to teach high flex and want to teach it out here at the campus centers, and that will offer more opportunities for students who might want to be remote, but might also want to be here with us and experiencing what the campus center can offer. One of our goals is to increase partnering with school districts and try to develop pathways similar to what the Geneva City School District and FLCC is doing to work together. So we hope to target hopefully a couple school districts, one or two, and try to create something similar to that where the districts really want to work with us and have the Newark Campus Center kind of be a natural progression for students. We've been participating with Todd Sloan again with the Bridges Rural Grants. And I serve on the team with Todd and other FLCC colleagues. We've been able to work with the folks that are running that, and we've gotten great information. I know many of you attended the gallery walks that were put on, and you know, just the information and the feedback that came back from those was so valuable to FLCC, but also specifically from a campus center perspective. There was so much great information in there that we can use to kind of put us in a certain direction. So I've been enjoying working with that group. And then the last thing is we feel like an opportunity is to reimagine the center mission. Our center mission has always been, can we get students here to attend in this building and serve them here in this building? But because of the pandemic, we know that, you know, education is found in a whole bunch of different ways, virtually and in other ways. So really, you know, as the college transitions to just finding students where they are and meeting them where they are, we're thinking that, you know, the center mission is more that our staff is really serving Wayne County, servicing our service area, and that might look different in the future than just putting classes here in the Newark campus. And so, you know, as we go in the future and we see what direction the college goes and the world goes, hopefully the Newark Campus Center mission will grow with that and will continue on in a direction that makes sense. So those are the things that I had for today. And are there any questions that people wanted to ask?
Any questions for Deborah? Steve?
First of all, Deborah, thank you. Your upbeat enthusiasm is really contagious. It always has been. We appreciate all you're doing in your leadership there in Newark. My questions are a little bit similar in terms of virtual. Some of the students who have selected the Gemini route. I'm wondering if, in fact, we've been able to maybe accentuate there throughout Wayne County and even the area, any of the districts that have been able to connect or touch with the campus via the Gemini route, some of the high school students. Have we seen any success there in that regard because it's been virtual?
Certainly, you know, we find over the years a lot of students come in with quite a few Gemini credits, and the Wayne County districts are, you know, participate, you know, at a great rate with those as well. You know, we've also, with being able to engage those Wayne County guidance counselors in the 2 meetings, that was great. And on the spring meeting, we were able to bring Fred Fink in, who also spoke with the guidance counselors directly about Gemini and about future things as well. So we try to link us all in and have the guidance counselors specifically see that there's a link from the classes from Gemini to potentially transitioning to a campus center and then potentially main campus or elsewhere. So certainly we're trying to drive that pathway.
Sure.
For
So
sure.
speaking of pathways, thank you for that answer. The second question is regard to some of the expansion there in the tech park. I'm wondering if any of those businesses might see FLCC as a training portal or a pathway for some of their particular needs, and whether we've been able to explore some of that.
Yes, I believe so. I'm not always involved in all those discussions, but I do believe Todd specifically with Workforce has been working directly with IEC Electronics, and others have as well. So whether it's bringing education to their building and their, you know, specifically inside their building, or having it be here and having them come in here as well, we're looking to just engage with all the partners here. And as the tech park expands, I think that that'll just expand as well. So hopefully they see us as a resource, yes.
Well, thanks, and thanks for the offer. I will give you a shout and an email and set up a time to come visit. So thanks again.
Sure, thank you.
Deb?
Yes.
This is Donna Mihalik. Could you expand a little bit on PTech? At this point, originally, I think we had expected that they would have gone through all 4 years of the program. Can you just give us a bit of an update on how we're working with them or not working with them?
Sure, yeah. We're definitely working with them. In fact, you know, we're about to graduate the first cohort of students, and it's very small. I think we have 3 graduates that are going to graduate, whether it be in May or August. And so, you know, in this next group, that would have been that class that originally started. And of course, you know, the groups, the cohorts that they have brought in have varied in size based on their own recruitment of, you know, 8th graders coming into 9th grade and wanting to choose that as an option. So the class sizes do vary. And, you know, they, like any new program, they started out small and they started to grow, and then they ran into the pandemic, of course, too. So there's been some challenges. I think they're not at the size that they necessarily want to be at yet, and it wasn't what we originally forecasted for enrollment coming directly from them. But we continue to work with them, and their principal, Kathy, has a great, you know, planning horizon as far as what next steps are to plot out the student's course of education and what she sees as a good scheduling option for students as they progress. We've been working, you know, the assistant director, Amber, here, and the assistant director at Victor, Betsy Hill, they, you know, both work directly with students on academic advising, planning course options. They work with the guidance counselor at PTech. And then Fred Fink, myself, Kathy Kent, we all work directly with their principal as well. So we meet regularly to try to see, you know, what we can do to enhance the scheduling. We have some classes on the books for the fall, specifically put at days and times that PTech has requested so that their students can meet those. So certainly we're here and we're our ears are open and willing to work with them and get them the schedule that they want so that we can go forward.
Thank you very much.
Other questions for Deborah? If none, I'll just, a real quick one, Deborah, regarding the identity and working with the Bridges Rural Grant. Is there any preliminary information that's almost helping to suggest or inform what that might look like in the future? What that from the Bridges Grant, is that helping to kind of clear up the picture of what that could be?
I think it will. I think it has huge potential. I think the potential is there for it to be a catalyst for a lot of things here, but we're not quite there yet. The group is working. We've been sifting through the data that was provided in those gallery walks. We've been working with the education team and kind of trying to plot out and really do a lot of brainstorming about the data that was given and what best project might come forward out of what the grant is and out of the information that has been gathered. So we don't have a set project yet on what that will look like. And, you know, Todd's been doing a great job leading that group and taking us through the paces, and we have several different, we meet bi-weekly with the education team. And, you know, we were one of 5 colleges that were selected to do this, so we are also learning from the other colleges that are doing this as well.
Great, thank you. We're all excited about what can come out of that.
Yeah.
Other questions for Deborah? None. Deborah, thank you very, very much. As Steve put it so well, we definitely, we love your enthusiasm and really appreciate what you're doing out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Moving forward, we'll go to Dr. Urbatis with the enrollment report. And question as you get started, Dr. Urbatis, you sent an update, but it was for a different period of time. And I was, okay, that was.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you.
Our last official reporting of spring 21 enrollment was April 23rd, which was the information you received as part of the deadline for your packet, for your meeting packet. And we began to report summer and fall enrollment as of this past Friday, April 30th. So I am sharing final spring numbers, official spring numbers with you that were included with your enrollment packet. And then I'm providing an introduction to summer and fall headcount numbers as well. So spring, we are above the line. Overall, headcount enrollment is at 0.5%. Quite a feat considering the environment and challenges we've had. And FTE is down 3.4% overall, but still not bad in comparison to the other SUNY community colleges. We are quite pleased with the outcome. So I'll stop and ask if you have any questions regarding final spring numbers before I move on. And good afternoon, everyone, by the way.
Any questions for spring? Seeing none.
All right.
I would just concur. You know, I look at some of the national data, and we're way the heck ahead of the country, not just New York. So, good job.
Well, and it speaks to the teamwork that has occurred across the college to achieve that result, and I mean that sincerely. So on to summer. So summer enrollment currently is down 9.7% in headcount. I am not overly concerned about that because we traditionally pick up sizable enrollment between May and June. And so June will probably give you a better indicator of where we stand at your June meeting. where we stand with summer enrollment. But overall, matriculated headcount is actually up 20%, 20.1%, which speaks to our enrolled students. As well as we have a new summer start for SUNY online programs. And they are contributing to the matriculated student enrollment increase in comparison to last summer. Non-matriculated, which generally is our largest population in the summer, is currently down 30.5%. But as I mentioned, I anticipate we'll pick up and close that gap as we move towards June. So I'll stop and see if any questions about summer.
So Carol, I do have one question.
Sure.
I see the target is 1,920 for the entire summer. The actual number last year was 1,124.
The actual headcount enrollment last summer was 1,124. That is correct.
So that's
And
a
the target,
substantial.
yes, but that relates to a few factors, including what I just mentioned, and that is the new summer start for SUNY online programs.
Okay. Okay, thank
And
you.
remember, that's the target. That's aspirational as well.
With some realism in there, I hope as well.
Well, the target is comes off of the projection, which is the mathematical formula, and we use a trend line formula for that.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. I'll continue with fall. Fall enrollment, we're also off to a great start with fall enrollment. New student registrations have begun. And overall headcount enrollment currently is up 17.5%. So full-time is up 4.8% and part-time is up 22.1%. So stay tuned as we move through the summer. Any questions?
So I'm sorry, I have one more. So the
Sure.
numbers you show there for 20 versus 21 are where we were this time last year?
That is correct.
Okay.
Same time period. Comparing apples to apples.
Sure. Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Again, really good job by all concerned here on your team. Dr. Kaiser,
Hi, good
talk
afternoon.
about retention.
Yes, this will be a short retention update. I think what I'd consider we're in the retention doldrums. We're at the point in the semester where we don't have our semester persistence numbers, and our activities, our retention activities are winding down as the semester and the academic year comes to an end. But I'll be able to provide 3 short updates on advising, our midterm grade, and our Starfish early alert campaign. In terms of advising and registering students for fall semester, as you know, we have a mandatory advising policy. This means that before a student could register for next semester, they must meet with a faculty or professional advisor. At this point, as of May 3rd, Monday, we advised 1,160 students. That's very much on par for last year and the year before. We're trying to benchmark with last year, which was COVID, and COVID pre-COVID. So we're in the ballpark of 6 to 10 students. Of those students who have been advised, 832 have registered for fall, and that's up by about 7 to 8 percentage points. So what we're finding is our advising appointments, although slightly down, they tend to be more effective. On Monday, we sent out a survey to all students who have not been advised or registered saying, hey, why the delay? Start to think about registering for next fall. It's only the initial 1 to 2 days of this survey But what we're getting back, the number one reason they're waiting for this semester, many students are struggling in the COVID environment, so they want to see how well they do. And then there's still a lot of uncertainty in terms of their own work schedule and their family schedule, so that COVID uncertainty is playing an effect. I'm going to move on to the midterm grade pilot. This is a pilot we initiated fall and extended to the spring. This leverages our Starfish early alert system to give students an actual midterm grade. We have 49 faculty participating. We had 339 students who received a grade less than 70%. Out of those students, ACTS advisors, or our professional advisors, have contacted 273 students. Basically all of those students. There's a duplication there. The anecdotal information is that it's been very well received, the pilot itself, by both faculty and students. So we're going to analyze the data this summer and determine if we are going to extend the pilot next fall or simply make this a requirement. So that would be how we're moving forward with the midterm grade. It's either going to be a requirement or we'll extend it for another semester, but all positive feedback. And then finally, our early alert Starfish campaign. We just completed our third Starfish campaign. This campaign is focused on students who aren't doing very well. And it's advising them, instead of waiting and receiving an F, you probably should withdraw from the course. Take action so it doesn't affect you in a detrimental way to your GPA. We had overall for all three Starfish campaigns, we have 65% completion rate, which is actually significantly more once you factor in the faculty who participated in the midterm grade pilot. We've contacted over 1,000 students who had flags raised this semester through our ACTS, or our professional advising office. And we provided over 5,000 instances of positive feedback. So that's students who are doing well, we give them kudos, and we're a national leader in terms of positive feedback. If you know me, I'm all about positivity, and I keep telling faculty and staff about, the importance of that extra nudge students receive. So I'm going to pause there and find out if there are any questions about anything I covered. Looking towards the future, in June, we'll provide you a pretty in-depth update around guided pathways work. And then in July and August, we'll lay out our plan, our retention plan for the next academic year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jonathan. All sounds like it's moving in the right direction. There's some positive numbers there. Moving on to resolutions. Dr. Nye, this is something I'm looking forward to. Are you on mute?
Hi, this is for Professor James Hewlett, and I would like to defer to our Provost and Chief Academic Officer to talk about this very exceptional event, and I'll congratulate Jim afterwards. Dr. Kaiser, take it away.
Will do. Jim, give us a wave so everyone can see you. I'm going to really discuss some of Jim's absolutely great work. Jim is a national leader in science education, and particularly in community college undergraduate research. I knew of Jim's work well before I knew, even thought about applying to Finger Lakes Community College. He's a national leader. He developed the CURI, which stands for the Community College Undergraduate Research Initiative. It's a network of community colleges. 10% of all community colleges in the nation are in this network. So that's in and of itself amazing. Over 6,000 students participate in this network of undergraduate research each year. So that's 6,000 students annually. The model around CURI is it helps students engage in understanding what research is all about, helps them explore different research opportunities, and connects them to a research community. he does this at a course level, a program level, and then through special summer undergraduate research projects. This work expands and diversifies our STEM pipeline significantly. Given the demographics of community college students, they're often left out of these experiences. And Jim really is a national leader. He is expanding and, most importantly, diversifying the opportunity for students to participate in undergraduate research, which is deemed a national high impact practice. Jim has been principal investigator or co-PI on over $23 million worth of grants, has authored 13 peer review papers, published 25 abstracts, and has been invited at least 33 times to provide a keynote presentation. Some of these numbers actually might be underreported because I'm taking them from last year. So he's probably, given Jim's how engaged he is in this work, I imagine I'm underreporting some of this. In addition to all of this work, Jim teaches a full load every semester. And for science, that's 17 credits. But Jim often teaches an overload because he puts into practice what this undergraduate research initiative is all about. That's how he is expanding the network. So at this point, I can't think of a better candidate for this very prestigious Distinguished Professor Award.
Trustee Cushman, could I add a couple little things? Jonathan did a wonderful job, and I asked him to do that as the chief academic officer. But just two things. One thing Jonathan didn't add that I've learned a heck of a lot, know what polysaccharides now are and how mushrooms are going to be such a food additive. And it's been wonderful working with Jim recently with Catherine Youngman from the Geneva Tech Center, from Cornell, and business people to help create what could potentially be a huge industry multiplier for our area with food additives through Jim's efforts. And it's been wonderful. And Jim, when we figured out very soon how to recognize you in public, you also have a really cool pen from SUNY, a special pin from SUNY as well for your efforts, and a very special medallion that goes along with that. We hope to make those final arrangements to recognize you publicly in the near future as well. So thank you. Thank you, Trustee Cushman, for allowing me to add that little special additive there to the wonderful efforts Jim has done.
Really appreciate it, Dr. Nye. And Jim, offer you the floor. Some words.
Well, I guess I didn't prepare anything. I guess the only thing I have to say is that, I've been here now 23 years, I believe, and this journey started out with myself just going into the lab with two students that they weren't getting credit for what we were about to do. It wasn't a class. It was just, we had an opportunity to do a project in the lab for a few months. I said, hey, do you guys want to work with me on this? They agreed to do it. And it just went from there. I just saw how excited they were about it. And that was a lot of years ago. And so I guess if you really, really like what you do, which I do, this is what happens, because, it's not something that you say, oh, I'm aiming for a distinguished professorship, right? But it just happens because I just love what I do. I always have. I wake up in the morning 23 years into this job, and I can't wait to get in that. Hey, we had a great day today in the lab. It's just very exciting. So I appreciate you guys recognizing it. And I'm very excited, obviously. And my family, of course, is also very excited because I've made a few sacrifices over the year in terms of time. And so they're much appreciative of it as well. So thank you very much.
Oh, we absolutely appreciate. Go ahead, Dr. Nye.
Trustee Martin helped. We didn't mention something. I think we need to be very specific about. Jim, this recognition comes with a $5,000 monetary award, which is in recognition of this. And this is a promise from our previous president, and I want to recognize her as well because Dr. Risser is the one that committed to SUNY several years ago that if anybody ever won this event, that there would be this monetary award. So I wanted to make that public and thank Dr. Risser for her efforts to move this forward. Thank you, Trustee Martin, for that reminder.
That's fantastic. I had the, early on, I had the pleasure of going into Jim Hewlett's lab with a colleague of his from RIT, and Doug Merrill, he just kept shaking his head saying, I wish I had this equipment at RIT. And it's all because of that extra effort that Jim put in to get that stuff and to build what he built. Just, you know, hats off to you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. I would add actually that we did with our most recent grant. I did just unpack a $35,000 piece of equipment this afternoon that we started to install in our lab. So it's like Christmas when you're a scientist to get that thing to show up at the lab, and right, and that's all external funding that we got through the National Science Foundation. So it was an exciting day.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other trustees have any comments or questions for Professor Hewlett?
Jim, this is Donna
you,
Mihalik.
Oh, go ahead, Donna. Go ahead, Donna. Sorry, I missed you.
It's okay. I just wanted to say that I have always enjoyed hearing your students talk about their excitement, being involved at an undergraduate level with the research that you are doing. So I'd just like to encourage you to continue to keep us informed on how the students are doing and what they're getting out of it. So thank you very much.
We could probably have them come give you guys a talk at some point, like a little 5-minute blurb on the project, and they would. It'll actually be hard to keep them to 5 minutes because all three of them think it's the greatest thing that they've ever done. So,
Thank you.
Jim, this is Joan Geis. If we ever can meet in person again, rather than having the kids come to us, I would really like to come to the lab, if that's possible.
it is anytime. Yeah, absolutely. We'll anyone's invited at any point that we're there if you want to come in, and even right now, we're able to do keep the social distancing and wear masks, and we've got our own research space now. So yeah, absolutely, anytime.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you again. And I just, such a credit to the whole organization. Thank you. Moving along, we'll move on to Ms. Palachuk and talking about the professional services position roster.
Yes, thank you, Trustee Cushman. In your packets, you have 2 updated or new job descriptions. These are for existing employees in HR. You'll probably recall that last month we brought to you a new job description for a position that we are currently recruiting for in anticipation of Patty Zimmer's retirement. And so with that realignment of titles, these new job descriptions have been created. Are there any questions about these?
Any questions?
Yep, I have one. This is Santa. Are there any wage increases as a result of these changes and responsibilities?
Yes, there's overall a savings with this realignment of titles, though.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That was easy. And I just one last reflection on Jim Hewlett. We've had a rough year. There's been a lot of tough discussions. That was probably the best discussion we've had in a year for what he does and what what the students, the response of the students. I just made my day. Moving on to a strategic thought presentation from esteemed Louis Noce.
Thank you, Trustee Cushman. If everyone will bear with me while I share my screen here for a second. Okay, can everybody see that? Yes. Okay. Awesome. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the foundation and the fundraising we've done this past year. And before I get started, when I just a quick operational note, when I refer to the past year, I focus on the foundation's fiscal year, which is July 1 through June 30. So we're not quite at the finish line yet. I put this little caption here that as I reviewed this and prepared this, I sort of subtitled it, it's really for us a COVID-19 story of innovation, growth, and grace. I think you're going to see with some of the things I'm going to report that a very small but mighty team was required to innovate very, very quickly. We have grown and bended our needle significantly, which you're going to see in a second. And it was all done very gracefully. It was really hard work behind the scenes that no one saw but us, and that's the way it should be. So I think you'll see some of these themes as we move through this. So the first highlight I want to bring to your attention is where we are currently with our fundraising, and that's 1.44 million and change. That is the largest fundraising total in FLCC history, and we still have 2 months to go. We have some time to get to June 30th. I think that there's something really important to understand about this number. And I think your initial question is, how did we get there? And I'll tell you the operational reason why we got there, but I think the real reason why we got there is everyone at FLCC. When you reach historic numbers like this, it's not about what one person does or 2 people or even 3. It's about the global work we're doing as an institution to get donors, alumni, and friends to realize that this institution is a wise investment. And people are believing in that, and numbers of different people. The operational part of it is we had a significant, robust increase in major giving. We have recorded almost $400,000 of new major gifts so far this fiscal year. And I think a lot of them have been secured because of that first part I talked about. I think people are noticing this institution and what we're able to do on all fronts. So I'll stop there for a second. That's a pretty heady number. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is counted in that? Is part of the SANS money counted in that?
Yes, it is.
And how much?
$300,000.
Okay, thank you.
And just so you know, Barb, that was something that our auditors corrected this year and wanted us to. That's how they wanted us to count that. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Louis, George, how do you define a major contribution?
It's $25,000 or more. 25,000 or more.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And I thought about listing a lot of them, right? But I will tell you this one, and because this is a small one, but I think it shows sort of what we're doing is someone called, wanted to start a nursing scholarship, wanted to give I think $1,000 or some small amount, and that's great. We'll take those. And I just said to this person, I said, have you ever thought about endowing it? And this is about, $25,000 or more, and she wanted to name it in her grandmother's name that was special to her. And I said, just think about it. You could do whatever you want, and you could do it over a period of time. That's great. And she called back 2 days later and said, I think I'm going to do 35,000. And I said, great. That's great too. It's about sometimes I think that's a good example of how we get to this number, and then how we also give donors options. Let's hear your options. I think a lot of people, especially inexperienced people, don't know what it's like to be philanthropic, and they act philanthropic in their own ways. And so that donors, I think, a good example of someone that sites was raised. So any other questions about this super big number? We'll talk about innovation, and here's a couple things, these next bullets. The golf ball drop, not a incredibly massive moneymaker, but last summer when the foundation board decided that the golf tournament was too risky for us to have, we thought of this literally in a couple of weeks. And I wish some of you could been in those meetings where I was asking the questions like, so wait, what are we going to do again? We're going to drop a bunch of golf balls and you buy the golf balls. I had trouble understanding it, but it ended up being one of these great engagement tools. And I think a lot of what we talk about with the innovation we've seen in this COVID-19 environment is necessity has been the mother of invention for us. And I think you'll see that again coming up here. The golf ball drop is going to be an annual event. We're going to do it every year because people were so engaged by it. The next thing I'll talk about is the virtual V&V scholarship dinner or holiday party. I don't think any of us at FLCC really knew how to do virtual events. We had to learn very, very quickly. Those of you that were at Vintners and Valentine's last week, it was a great night. We're still counting money and things like that, so we'll have official totals for you pretty soon. But in terms of what we raised, the number I have right now is $48,000. We're still calculating that net number, but that's a lot of money to be raised over what I call over the WebEx. So I just want to recognize Margaret Lorenzetti, who really champions these type of things. These are things that were not easy to do. They were incredibly difficult, and they were done, I think, with grace and an ability to still be successful despite our environment. The next thing I'll talk about, and it's not as flashy as an accounting transition. And I'd like to thank Christine for being so patient with us. So the foundation is moving our accounting to a third-party partner that does many other SUNY community colleges in terms of their accounting practice. So it has been a ton of work to do this transition. They will be doing the day-to-day, some of the day-to-day accounting for the foundation when we fully transition over. But it has been, and we're right in the middle of it right now. It's a lot of work to transition some of our stuff traditionally the way it's been done to this new way. Any questions about that? Okay. I'll talk about innovation here with the wine donor delivery. I know probably a lot of you, if not all of you, received wine delivered to your home on around holiday time. This was a response for us not being able to have our donor brunch. And what were we going to do? And we sort of looked around and we said, well, we have all this wine, and we devised a plan to deliver every single one of our supporters 2 bottles of wine at their homes. We each took a little section of the list. We all put boxes of wine in our cars, and we went and did it. And I will tell you all that it has been something that was wildly successful, and we have gotten, as a staff, more thank yous about that than we've gotten in a long time. And once again, I think this is something that we're going to continue to do because folks were so engaged by it. I couldn't remember if we talked to you about this before, but I wanted to mention it just because it was so unusual. We did secure, and this was last fiscal year, a $1 million documented bequest. And the only reason why I bring this to your attention, because I was reflecting on this, and it was at the height of the pandemic. It was this time of year, April, May, and it was done over the phone. And it was, I think it just shows how flexible we've been to do things that were extraordinary in this environment. I'll also talk about the Mueller Foundation. gift that was $225,000. I'll just say this gift completely funds a lot of our operations at the Mueller Field Station. This donor is very happy with FLCC at the moment. And I think Palio has done excellent work stewarding that donor to one, make sure they're incredibly happy, but also positioning us to be able to, at some point along the line here, secure a real legacy gift from this foundation. And it's a good thing. And it's all been done in this this pandemic. So this is another good highlight for us. And the last thing I'll leave you with on this is the foundation board engagement and growth. I will say that the foundation board is truly an engaged group right now. I think we still have we could get better, but I will tell you today I spoke with, hold on, wait, 1, 2, 3. I talked to 6 foundation board members all about diverse things, and that is a usual occurrence. Our meetings are filled with engagement. Folks are asking us questions, deep questions. It's exciting to watch that board become more and more engaged. So I'll pause there for a minute before I go to the next slide. If there's any other questions.
So yes, I do, Louis. The $1 million bequest that you noted, was that through a planned giving estate process where we're anticipating through someone's estate that will be the beneficiary?
Yes, exactly what it is.
Great. Okay, thanks. So,
yep.
And Louis, you noted that $1 million bequest is not part of the total for the fundraising, correct?
Yeah. Sorry. Thanks, Dr. Knight. Yeah, that is not included in what we raise. We count bequests when they're realized, unless we're in a campaign mode, and we're not in campaign mode. So there's 2 points of a bequest. We document the bequests, and then we realize the bequest. If we were, so that's as simple as that. So it doesn't count in our totals.
So I guess I just like a follow-up. I'm just wondering if that is a pathway that you are pursuing with regard to individuals as they construct and ultimately put together their estate plan. And I've said this publicly before, but factually, those in that realm are starting to see a awareness and a realization and a sharing of what those bequests are, as opposed to the days where folks might sit around and wait for a reading, if you will, after someone passes of the intentions of the deceased. So I'm just curious if you've been able to connect with local or regional estate attorneys, as an example, and the local bar associations to make them aware of the benefits of FLCC and how folks can connect their clients with us.
Yeah, Steve, that's a really great point. And I think at the end, I didn't put a real formal slide in, but as we look to the future a little bit, that's something we have talked about in terms of future planning, is when we talk about a more sophisticated plan giving program. And then obviously the engagement of attorney, as well as presenting those things to donors when we meet with them. And in the future also includes that, but also the meeting with people. And I'll get to that, if that's okay.
Sure, great. Okay, I'm glad it's on your radar, and I don't want to put Barb on the spot, but a national regarded fundraiser, and certainly someone that's a subject expert when it comes to these matters as well. So we have talent very close.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Louis, I just have a minor question. I don't want to get into the weeds, but I'm just curious why the accounting transition is a highlight. I mean, what
It's a
do you
highlight.
envision?
I'm sorry. I guess I wanted to highlight it because it's something that's an incredibly large task that no one's seeing. There's really 3 people seeing it: Christine, Breach Palio, and myself, and the third party person. And I think what I wanted to highlight is there's a lot more going on with foundation day-to-day practices than the fun stuff here. There is a real operation going on behind the scenes that not a lot of folks see. I think that's why, for me, it was a real highlight.
So do you see this as an innovation in efficiency or professionalism, or what? I'm just curious about this.
I guess my answer to that is to be determined. I think it's going to change things in terms of efficiency, possibly, but when I tell you we are smack dab in the middle of it, we're smack dab in the middle of it. And I would suggest that maybe it's more on my mind than anything else right now, because it's consuming time, and I will tell Breach Paleo and I are learning every day. And Christine is a patient teacher.
Thank you.
I have a question. So I might have misunderstood, but are you taking this accounting out of house?
Yes,
Are
this will be a third-party accounting firm that is actually managing some of our day-to-day stuff.
So they're doing basically the back office work.
Yes, some of it, not all of it. Like for example, we have some processes in place internally that are working really well and smooth, and this is some other stuff that is on a much larger scale.
And they work with other not-for-profits doing this.
Yeah, one of the things that was really attractive about this group was they specifically do other SUNY community colleges, their foundations. So it was something that once we were able to find them, after the foundation board asked us to look into that was we were lucky, I think, to find them and feel comforted that they have experience within our realm. Anything else before I get to the next one? Okay, so this is a lot of numbers here, but I wanted to show everyone a sort of a 5-year snapshot. And I'll bring some stuff to your attention. One of the things I talk about a lot is where, from a fundraising point of view, we should be naturally aspirating in terms of fundraising dollars. And I think if you look at the FY revenue line, if you look at the 5-year trend of what we've been doing, I would estimate at this point, depending how we finish this year, I think we should be aspirating at somewhere around $850,000 to $1 million. I think some of the numbers here bear that out. I think if we dip below 850,000, we have to do some deeper investigation. I'll also bring you to the attention. I think you'll see a drop in our donors, and I will tell you that was a decision we made to the foundation and the foundation staff to focus at one point on major giving because we were being so successful. And what happens when you see a donor drop like that? We are sort of abandoning our traditional annual giving, which is our small stuff, our mailings and things like that, to really laser beam on the major gifts. We were confident in our cash numbers, so you'll see that there. But I think far and away these numbers are all positive. And once again, we still have the month of May here as well as the month of June to go. So we have time. We have time yet. These numbers will change significantly, and they've changed significantly since we put this together. So any questions?
I'm just wondering, how do you reach the living alumni? What are the communication methods that you use?
Yeah, it's we do mail, phone, electronic has become very robust. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we saw some, and it was surprising, I think, to a lot of us, because no one really knew what it was going to be like, right? And I think we quickly realized that people were really captured in their homes on laptops. We all experienced it. You were laser beam focused on what your email was doing. I think many people across the country saw a real uptick in electronic giving, and I think it's something that is sort of changed the paradigm and how we do things and how we address things, and that would be our primary way: electronic, mail, phone. Those mail and phone still work. In fact, mail being probably the the smallest ROI, it is a comforting experience for most people to get a piece of mail. It still works.
And just a follow-up, thank you, Louis. So how do you define alumni?
There's two methods. We usually, there's a case standard and then there's our standard. We define them as someone that graduated. There's a case standard that I don't necessarily always like to use, but the case standard is anyone that steps on your campus for one day, you could consider an alumni. It becomes big business at bigger schools where donors are really, really valuable in terms of their U.S. News and World Report counting metric. But we define them as someone that graduated from here.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that, for example, LinkedIn, one method, someone that attended FLCC may not have graduated, but may have listed in their profile. So sometimes requires some further digging, but also at the same time extends our brand. So thanks for that answer. Appreciate it.
Sure. Any other questions about this before I move on?
Yep, this is Santa. I have a question.
Sure.
If I'm reading this correctly, it says alumni participation rate,
Yes.
0.75. So that means less than 1% of the alumni give? Is that
Yes.
how?
Yes, that is correct.
That's a pretty low number.
I will tell you, industry standard is
Yeah.
usually, I would say probably usually around 12%. If you're at a like a 4-year, if you're doing between 12 and 15% alumni participation, that's really good.
Yeah.
So
So do
just
we have any metrics or any, I don't want to say SLA, service level agreements, but are there any goals to increase that amount?
yes, we have goals every year to try to increase that amount. I will tell you, this is the hardest thing to increase. There are people in the industry that have their complete consulting practices on how to raise alumni participation rate. And just so everyone knows, the reason why it's so important, it isn't for us. It's a good metric for us to track, and this is why it's a good metric to track, because it gives us a perspective. At a 4-year school, it's part of U.S. News and World Report's calculation for rankings. So the higher your alumni participation rate is, the higher your ranking goes. So that's why institutions spend, I mean, it's unheard of amounts of money to try to gather donors. For example, lots of, and I will tell you this just from an interest, I find it interesting. There are no hard and fast rules on how you do it. I know there's many schools that count, if you're an alumni and buy season tickets, they're big football teams, they count you as a donor. Right. So basically they're counting 30,000 people as donors right off the bat when people buy their football season tickets, if they're an alum. So it's a big part of the business. It's a good metric for us to track. It's not as important as it is as a 4-year though.
Yeah, I mean, didn't Carmelo Anthony, doesn't he have a building at Syracuse named after him, but he really didn't graduate from there? I mean, it's the same idea, right?
So sure. We call that, just to close the loop on that, we call that, not to get super kind of geeky about this, we call that classification alumni never complete. That's what we call that. It's a sub segment. Sorry.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Anything else? The final thoughts here, or the final slide, we wanted to show what we spent, because the line is the foundation. We really spend our money as fast as we get it. There isn't a lot we keep in. So we did the asbestos abatement, the Ontario County Sand Center payments. That money comes in and goes out. Student scholarships, $210,000. Emergency funds, $66,000. They are approved and submitted every single day. It is a well-oiled machine how that happens. And foundation operations, I mean, $82,000 we spent just to run our things. And if I could go into detail what that covers to some extent, but it's the foundation supports a half-time bookkeeper or office manager in our area. So that's a salary, a part-time salary that they support, as well as, how we do fundraise, how we pay for all these things. And also other benefits we give to the college in terms of marketing and things like that. in terms of marketing our fundraising. So there's a host of things in the operations, but I just wanted y'all to see what we spend. And obviously we could go into deeper detail at some point, but these are the big items, the ones that will stand out in terms of what we spend. Any questions on this? Okay, I will finish with questions, but I wanted to give just a brief sort of look into the future. So I think the biggest thing I think for the future that I think we're going to have to do, and it sort of dovetails on what Steve talked about a little bit. I can't begin to tell you how much it has hampered us not to be able to be out in the community meeting with donors this year. It is. I met with one today for the first time in a year and a half, and it was different. It was great. It was great, and I just think, just in general, the future for next fiscal year, we really want to see where we finish out, because that'll be important as we build our program for next year. But an increased emphasis on moving and having human contact with as many people that love us as we can, because that is something that we have sorely missed, and in my opinion is just irreplaceable. It's not something we could replace, even though we've done very, very well. So I will take any other questions, and thank you for your time, and I will stop sharing.
Louis, this is George. First of all, there's really been a shift in the approach, and it's showing in the numbers. It's so just thinking since I've been here, and you and I've had conversations, and I've just seen a wonderful steady curve upward. It's and it's not just in the numbers, but it's also in the culture and what just the general feeling one gets about donating to FLCC now. So kudos and thank you. When you talk about getting together with folks, that's not so much events and things of that nature. That's one-on-ones, right? It's that intimate.
Yeah, I have to be honest with you, George, and that's what I mean by that. I'm sorry. Thanks for helping me pull that out a little more. But it was really neat to have a meeting with someone today. It's something I can't duplicate. You know, it just being close, being able to look someone in the eye physically and talk to them and listen to them and find out what they care about and what speaks to them is something that's difficult to get any other way. So we're looking forward to that.
Thank you. Great. Other questions for Louis?
I actually do. This is Santa.
Santa?
Yep. Is there a policy regarding how much money the foundation has to keep on hand? And is there a policy of how much or a goal that goes out to the students every year?
I would tell you, I have the policies actually because I had to deal with something today right here. So I was leafing through them today. I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm just curious.
That's a good question, and if
there was a percentage or
patient, I'll leaf through.
No problem. I was just curious more than anything. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Other questions for Louis? Going once, going twice. Louis, thank you.
No, thank you,
we
everyone.
applaud you. Thank you very much. And that should wrap up this session. So I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Okay, from
I'll move it.
Jeff, I'm sorry.
That's Jeff. No, it's all right.
Yeah, sorry. And second?
Donna, second.
From Donna. Donna, thank you. And all in favor of adjournment, please say aye or raise your hand. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. Steve, back to you.
Thank you, George. And a nice, robust, and full education and planning meeting as usual. So thanks to everyone who participated. Moving on to Finance and Facilities, Trustee Cass, please lead us if you would.
Thank you, Chairman Martin. I'd like to open up the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, being none, I'd like to welcome Grace Gonzalez and Craig Stevens from the Bonadeo Group for our audit presentation.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back in front of everybody. Another year. It looks like we are ready to wrap everything up with respect to the audit. First of all, I just want to, we've met with the Audit and Finance Committee a couple times over the last couple months. I just want to introduce to all the board members, Grace Gonzalez, one of my partners here at Bonadeo. As I've gotten older over the years, it's time to start transitioning some of the work to some of the younger partners in our group. So this was the first year that Grace was involved with the audit, working obviously with everybody at the college. So just want to introduce Grace to everybody, and I'm going to turn it over to Grace for the presentation this evening.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Craig. I will share now the materials, which I believe were distributed in advance. And I hope that everybody can see the materials. Excellent.
Can you make a little bit bigger, Grace?
Yes. How about now?
Perfect.
Very good. Well, thank you everyone for setting some time aside to chat about Audit 2020. As Craig mentioned, we previously met with the ERM committee and reviewed all of the deliverables and everything in your packet. The purpose of today's presentation is just to provide some of the highlights relative to the audit. We encourage your feedback, so feel free to interject with questions as I go through the materials, or hold your questions towards the end is appropriate as well. Before we get too deep into the materials, I wanted to take a step back and just put everything in context for you, because 2020 was truly a very challenging year. On a global perspective, if you think about it, about half of the year was during COVID. So it was a very challenging year for all community colleges across New York State. They had to deal with a worldwide pandemic, protect their students, protect their workforce. There was incredibly months and months when we had to work together in order to manage COVID relief funding, manage through lack of clarity, managed through lack of guidance. So certainly a very difficult year for everyone involved in community college world. In addition to that global perspective, if you will, Finger Lakes as a local college had some significant turnover in some of the key accounting positions. So you really had both global and local challenges, which together impacted how the year went for you. What you see on your screen at this point is a high-level overview or executive summary of the audit. So first, we start by talking about the independent auditor's report. We plan on issuing an unmodified opinion. This is the best opinion that we will provide to you as your auditors. As far as the system of checks and balances, the internal control system, there were two items that came up during the audit. One of them was a material weakness related to your cash account reconciliations. The other one was a significant deficiency related to your annual financial close process. Now, I did take the time to talk to you about the various challenges the college had to manage through this year. So again, this is sort of related to those challenges. We have discussed all of those items in detail with management, with the Enterprise Risk Management Committee. Management is well aware of those items. They're working very closely to address them. And as your auditor, we would expect and would anticipate that by the time we come next year to complete 2021 audit, those will be addressed.
I think what Grace just said is very important for the full board to hear. You know, we had a lengthy discussion with the committee. And just as Grace said, the important thing is, you know, their procedures are being put in place to address the issues that were identified as part of this year's audit. And the expectation would be that they will not be the same situations occurring as we go through the 2021 audit process. So I think that's the important thing from a board member's takeaway with respect to this item.
Relative to the audit adjustments, we did have some material audit adjustments that were recorded by management in order to straighten out the books by year end. Accounting policies and estimates, there was nothing new or critical concerning from your perspective. Everything was consistent with the past, and as part of the audit, we do look at estimates to make sure that they're reasonable. This last section here talks about the audit of federal funds. So if we think about what we do for you as the auditor, there's sort of two audits. The first one is audit of the college's financial statement. So we audit the numbers. The second one is we audit the federal funds that the college receives. This year you received $20.3 million of federal dollars. 17 of that was financial aid. So those are the direct loans that you give to students, Pell, work study, the typical programs, if you will. In addition to that, in 2020, you received almost $2.1 million of COVID relief funding. So that's the Higher Education Emergency Relief Funding, or the HERF funding. Of that $2 million, about $1 million was distributed to students. So the money came in, you gave it to students, and obviously you complied with all of the rules. And then about $1.1 million was utilized by the college for pandemic-related expenses. Now, the single audit sort of has its own timeline, because every year we as auditors have to wait on the federal government to issue an audit guide, which discusses what we as auditors should do to audit your compliance with those funds. So the guide came out pretty late. A lot of that work has started, and we're in the process of finishing it up. So with that, I will turn over to the next page so we can talk a little bit about the numbers. So if we take a look at, this is the statement of net position for 2020. You could see that the total assets were a little bit lower than last year. The significant increases in 2020 were in current assets. So your cash position was a little tighter this year. And of course, that is directly related to the fact that half the year was under a pandemic. The other decline was in capital assets. They were lower than last year. You had some new capital additions in 2020, but those additions were offset by about $5 million of depreciation expense this year. On the liability side, you did have a very significant increase in the non-current liabilities. They were at $2 million compared to almost $10 million at the end of 2020. We'll talk a little bit about those in a couple minutes. Those are primarily liabilities related to the cost-sharing plans that the college participates in, New York State Employee Retirement System and Teachers Retirement System. The bottom line, if you will, unrestricted net position was about $2.6 million compared to $7 million last year. Now, you may not recognize this number because it does not come from the annual report. This number comes from your annual audited financial statements, and I'll reconcile that for you on the next slide. But if you're wondering about the significant drop year over year in unrestricted net position, it has to do with some of those liabilities, TRS and ERS, that we talked about. And it also has to do with the fact that 2020 was a pandemic year and you truly had a net operating loss this year. So
I think it's really important to understand, as Grace said, that a lot of those costs you see in the decline in your unrestricted net position are factors that are out of management's hands. They're uncontrollable because they're related directly. As Grace said, these are related to your financial statements. You're picking up all the activity related to your participation in those the TRS and ERS. So those are items, and Grace is going to talk a little bit here now when you start looking at items that are under the control of the management of the college. I think, once again, that $4.2 million decrease which we just saw, keep in mind when you relate that to what you're actually operating, quote unquote, operating losses related to your unrestricted funds. I think you're going to make that relationship and make that, I guess the relationship is important when you consider what's under your control versus out of your control.
Thank you, Craig. And this is another quick remark I was going to make. When we look at your statement of net position, there's things that you directly control in the short term and the long term, and there's things that you don't necessarily directly control. So one of the things that we, as your auditors, look at, and one of the things that SUNY looks at, is the current ratio. So the current ratio you derive by taking total current assets and divide them by current liabilities. Your current ratio last year was 1.9 and 1.6 this year. So some decline in 2020, but in both years, well above the 1-to-1 ratio that SUNY likes to see and we like to see as your auditors. So that's positive for 2020. Very quickly on this page, we reconcile your SUNY annual report to your audited financials. So your SUNY annual report, the unrestricted fund balance started at 6.3. You had a $400,000 operating loss, and that gets you to the 5.9 fund balance at the end of the year. Out of that fund balance, you subtract the impact of those ERS and TRS liabilities that you have for the pension plans and then the audit adjustments, and that's how you reconcile back to the $2.6 million net position for your audited financials. If we look year over year on the SUNY annual report basis, what happened, you had increase in fund balance last year, decrease in fund balance this year. The primary reason for this year's decline is you had one pretty sizable expense, which you didn't have in 2019. And that is the voluntary retirement incentives. They were about $680,000. It's certainly a balancing act between thinking about the long-term fiscal viability of the college and also your workforce. But that was a very significant expense that you had in 2020, which you did not have in 2019. So let's talk a little bit about the ERS and TRS liabilities. A couple years ago, this became a significant focus for community colleges because you're making promises to your employees that when they retire, they will be receiving pension payments for the rest of their life. And the reality is that accounting standards require you to record that liability right now, even though you're not going to be making payments for many years. What you see here is last year, the TRS, the Teachers Retirement System, was an asset of $800,000. This year it was a liability of $800,000. ERS was a liability of $2 million at the end of last year, and the liability was almost $9 million at the end of this year. So really what you have to keep in mind is this significant jump in liabilities in 2020 is not unique to FLCC. All community colleges experienced the same negative trend increase in liabilities, and it was primarily because of the change in the discount rates. So we live in a much lower interest rate environment, which there's an inverse relationship between discount rates and liabilities. When the rates go down, liabilities go up. So that's what you're seeing here. The other piece is when you update the demographic assumptions, the longer people live, the longer your payments are going to go out, the bigger your liability is. So that's what you see here. A very quick note here on this page, we present not just the FLCC's portion of these liabilities, but the entire system's liabilities. So yes, if you look at TRS, they did have $2.7 billion of deficit. ERS had $26 billion of deficit, which may seem like pretty significant numbers. But what we could tell you is when we think about these state retirement system, they are 90% funded or 86% funded. Those are pretty high funded percentages. So that means that you have set enough assets aside to pay for 98% of the liability or 86% of the liability. Compared to other states, New York State is in a pretty good shape. The next thing what we do here is we compare you, we do some trend analysis. So when we look at your unrestricted fund balance as percentage of operating expenses, SUNY likes to see you between 10 and 15%, and you can see that for the last 10 years, the college has stayed within those guidelines, so that's positive. We look at unrestricted revenue and expenses. Obviously, we would like to see the revenues higher than the expenses. 2020, that was not the case, but again, we are talking about the year, half the year living in the pandemic. Looking at the composition of revenue by source, you have the student share, state share, and local share. What happened in 2020 was very consistent with where overall community colleges were for last year. A little off from the SUNY prescribed formula, but again, you are very much in line with what you see for all other community colleges.
I think the important thing to take away from that slide is based on the formula under New York State Ed law, you can see that the formula says 33-40-26 on the allocation of how these the revenue where these revenues are supposed to come from. And you can see that the students, and this has been the same case for a number of years now in New York State, the students are picking up the state's share of covering the costs of their education. Even your local share, the Ontario County is above the average. But the state has been deficient in meeting their 40% requirement of funding. And as a result, you can see that the students are borne with that additional cost.
Next couple of slides is sort of where do we stand compared to the rest of the pack. The information where you're compared to your peers is on a year lag because it comes from the SUNY annual report, which is on a year lag. The college has historically been middle of the pack, and you could see here being middle of the pack and your 2020 results being consistent with 2019 results. So that's where you stand. Same thing with the fund balance as percentage of operating expenses. You are very much the middle of the pack.
Yeah, you see some outliers there on the maintenance of fund balance. It's kind of interesting, and Herkimer is not a client of ours, so I really don't know what's happening there with respect to their unbelievably high level of fund balance in relationship to operating expenses.
And what Craig just talked about, you could see, so this is, looking at it on a graph, looking at it as a graph as opposed to just a chart. You could see here's where your percentages, fund balance as percentage of operating expenses, you are a little bit behind peers, but again, you have Herkimer and Niagara and Genesee sort of skewing the peer population here.
Yeah, I don't think there's any cause for alarm there. You've been maintaining a very, especially from an unrestricted basis, very consistent, right around between 5.5, if I remember, 5.5 and $6 million on your percentage basis. As you can see, it's been very consistent, right around 13% over the last 5 years. Done a good job of managing your unrestricted funds.
I'm going to skip over the slide. We talked about financial aid and the fact that this year you had, in addition to student financial aid, you had additional HERF dollars. And the last thing that I would leave you with is talking a little bit about the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act. So we're moving really into more and more electronic environment where the students want to be able to do their FAFSA on their app and get approved for financial aid on their app. So all of that confidential student information is moving more and more into the electronic world. And what the Department of Education wants you to do is protect that information. The Graham-Leach-Bliley essentially has certain requirements where you're supposed to be following in order to be able to secure and protect student information, keep it confidential. You've always had to comply with this act. But for the very first time last year, the federal government required the auditors to check compliance. Now we are just doing a high level understanding of your compliance. We're not testing and giving assurance on compliance. We're just doing a very high level steps. But what we can tell you is that some community colleges have really struggled, even with the high level compliance questions that we ask, have really struggled. And that has not been the case for the college. At this point, there's no big issues on the high level compliance questions that we ask. So that is positive for you. And I'll leave you with that as far as remarks. So this completes what we had relative to the audit pack, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
This is Jeff. If I could just offer a comment.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Just to reiterate what the folks from Bonadeo were saying is we spent a pretty extensive amount of time plowing through the details of the audit. And I did want to thank both the folks from Bonadeo and from the management of the college for their candor and transparency in discussing those issues in the audit that require some improvement. I'm speaking on behalf of the committee, but I'll speak for myself to say that we're very confident that we understand what the issues were and that they'll be reconciled and won't be an issue in any further audits. So just wanted to offer that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah. If I go ahead, Santa, I'll defer to you first.
Okay, thank you. This is Santa. I guess piggybacking off of what Jeff said, I was trying to find last year's audit and I couldn't find it, but were the issues or the concerns that were found last year addressed?
Last year, as part of the audit process, we didn't have the level of concerns that happened this year. And I think as Grace mentioned earlier, there's a combination, it was a perfect storm with respect to the issues faced by just COVID in general, as well as there was significant turnover in the finance area. And that really compounded the problem. So these problems weren't to the extent that, they weren't to the level that they surfaced this year. And I think as Jeff mentioned, as Grace mentioned earlier, the key is having procedures in place, making sure that, under Christine's guidance currently, making sure there's procedures in place to make sure these things don't happen in the future. And then, that'd be the worst situation, is that we get to the same point next year and we're repeating these items because then the improvements weren't made and they weren't properly addressed. And that is not our expectation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to reemphasize what I know has already been stated, but Christine, you continue to be a bright light in terms of, and thank you for accepting the full-time opportunity as comptroller with the college, and recognize these are matters that you inherited, but I'm quite confident, as Jeff and others have already expressed, in terms of where we're headed, and also confident that those matters that have been brought forth not only will be, but are already being addressed. So being proactive. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Grace and Craig, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
See you later.
Good night.
Okay, now we'll do the FLCC 2021 operating budget update and financial report. Christine?
Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. I hope I don't bore you after your initial finance report. Okay, so I hope everybody can see your screen. On here you have our financial update as of April 26th. You will notice as we start, we're going to compare year to year. In year to year, between 2021 fiscal year,
Christine,
our revenues are.
We can't see your screen, Christine.
Oh, heck. All right. Oh, it helps if you. Sorry about that. Are you able to see it now?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Helps if you click the share screen button. You'll notice in comparing revenues from year to year for 2020-21, we are at 90.4% of budget, and last year 19-20 we were at 88.1%. This indicates an increase in our revenue of 2.3%, which is representative that during this period of 2021 we received an adjusted state aid payment. The state aid payment not only adjusted our current year to, we had originally budgeted to receive a 20% decrease of state aid. The executive budget was passed and we are only receiving a 5%. So they made up the difference of our first two payments in this last payment. They also paid back some of the state aid that was shorted from 19-20. That represents our increase in revenue this year compared to last year. As you look at our expenses for 2021, we're at 61.3% of budget as compared to last year at 64.7% of budget. This decrease from this year indicates that last year during this period, we were entering the pandemic and we were increasing our purchasing power in preparation for operations during that pandemic. Next, we're going to move on to our projections. The projections were primarily based on the percentage of actuals for last year's budget. You will notice changes in revenue projections of an increase of state aid of $1.8 million. That's a representation of what I just spoke with you about, our adjusted aid payment for the third payment this year. Making up the difference of where we were shorted for the 15%. Also, you'll notice an increase in our miscellaneous revenue that represents the $625,166 received from New York State from last year's 19-20's aid payment shortage. You'll also notice a change in our out-of-state non-resident figures. After doing some research and talking with our bursar, that figure does include New York State residents who did not secure a certificate of residency. Understanding that during a pandemic, it was difficult for people, individuals to go in person to receive their certificates. And we anticipate that that's why we have a higher number there, because people didn't go out and get them. And some of the counties were not cooperative with providing them electronically. If you look at the expense adjustments, they have taken in salaries and benefits have been increased, not only based on the percentage of last year's final, but also to include anticipated expenses for adjustments associated with the Retrenchment Act, and also with the anticipation of possibly hiring some new positions. You'll also notice that there is an adjustment for equipment, which will be increased to the with the anticipation of increasing that spending based on our aid being adjusted by New York State. You'll notice that the projection for utilities is less than it was last year. This decrease is representative of decreased occupancy on campus, along with several energy efficiency acts that Kathy and her crew have installed for the college. These projections result in an approximate $2.9 million move to fund balance. You'll notice that this month's projection does not include our Carrizo Award, as we're still working with the college to provide specifics as to the allocation, and then we'll make the specific adjustments with increasing the revenue and the associated expenses for those stimulus funds. With regards to the college receiving Carrizo funds for students, we received $1.3 million. $1.26 million of that will be awarded to our students on May 14th of 2021. And that concludes my financial update. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah,
This is
just
George.
oh,
Go ahead, Steve.
go ahead, George. No, go ahead, George. Go ahead.
Just a quick question on the out-of-state non-residents that were unable to get the proof of residency. Is there any chance that they could come back in the future? Is there any liability that they could come back in the future and prove that they were a resident?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So what happens is they have extended our time frame to receive certificate of residence, so we are still accepting them. So as students are receiving bills that includes the double tuition, and they were like, well, I live here, if they go out and get their CRs, we can certainly accept them, bill the counties at that time, and remove that double tuition.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Christine, Steve here. Could you put that slide back up again? I just wanted to confirm what you've already stated as an observation.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I also like to mention that this is the exact slide that was included in your packet.
Great, thank you.
Can you see it?
It seems to, not yet.
Oh, why?
It would just seem to me that on the revenue side.
Oh, you don't want.
There it is. Yep, we can see that now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
On the revenue side, on state aid, we got another $1.8 million there that, of course, we really did not know about come the end of last year or even prior to constructing this budget. So there's that. And if we had the CARES, roughly $1 million, therein lies the 2.8 million net, if you will, and some expenses that have lagged would be a fair analysis. But two pretty large chunks of dollars there on the state aid side, as well as CARES, not even taken into consideration Carrizo yet. So it's certainly some dependency on the federal and state government that we just didn't know about, not only when this was constructed, but as we navigated through the year. So I realize trustees have been seeing this month to month, and Christine, you day to day, but I do think it's worth noting as we've gone through this process and understanding that we really just did not know, and we continue to, if you will, still have some clarity that we're anticipating with regard to Carissa. So thanks for staying on top of this. This is a moving target, not only federally, but also statewide, and appreciate your work.
Thank you very much. And you're exactly correct. The resulting increase to fund balance is a direct result of a change in the state aid allocation and then the CARES funds.
Yeah,
Does anybody else have any questions?
Oh, thank you, Christine. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Hey, Kathy, facilities update.
Good evening. I'll start with a real brief look at the schedule pertaining to the nursing project. May 3rd, which is this week, the O building is being dismantled. Tomorrow, one of the 12 sections will be lifted and put on a trailer in D lot. So there is activity up there, which is great. I will feel good when everything is gone, but that is moving. So that's really good. I was hoping that some construction trailers would be on site this week, but we've moved that to next week just to get the contractor doing the O building out, just to give him some more room. So next week we'll have activity there, and we should have activity with the temporary stair going into the courtyard, some installation that should be installed as well. The other May 20th is when all the contractors will be on site and we will start the construction. And I've talked about that before, and it's coming. It's right around the corner. And then the other activity with the nursing, and I know I just met with Lewis and Bree today pertaining to June 8th. That will be the ribbon cutting, and you'll be getting some information about on that. I think it's I want to say 11 o'clock. Lewis, is that right?
Yes, everyone should have got their invitations today.
Okay, perfect.
So stay tuned for more.
All right, and then the next thing, the other thing with the O building, Dr. Nye and I had a brief conversation today, and we will be taking some photos and hopefully share some of that and the removal just to show everybody what's going on with that. And maybe that just goes into e-news. We'll have to figure that out. I would like to spend a minute on the wellness center. That is a part of the nursing project, and we've talked briefly about that. And in your packet, there is a rendering, and I will attempt to share my screen so that we can look at that and kind of talk through that together. And I just need a heads up if that is, am I sharing? Do people see that? Yay, okay. All right, so there is a plan view over here, and then this is just an isometric view. And you probably, hopefully it is in your packet, but the intent of this, the part of the wellness program, and I'll say it at a very consolidated effort, and I'm sure there's someone can talk to a little bit more about the theory, but it's really consolidating areas for student wellness. It's consolidating community standards and counseling. It's bringing that together with student health and then with the food cupboard. And if you were to look at the plan view, the students will walk in from the hallway. There will be a waiting room and there will be a reception area. They will inquire or they will have appointments, and then they will go to where they need to go. These will be counseling tied in with community standards and counseling. This is a new director's office. Then we will have a restroom and an exam room tied into student nursing. I'm sorry, to student health. That door goes into student health, and then this is student health. This is a sensory room for students if they're having some issues, and it will be things will be put in there for acoustics, etc. And that's something we'll work with community standards on. And then this will all be for the food cupboard. We'll have dry goods, and I think we'll separate that and get that a little more organized. And then we'll have a pantry here. when the students, then they can exit out here, and there will be a large conference room to accommodate the community the community affairs, etc. So I think it's going to be really nice, and the renovation is a challenge only because we have to move people many places. So we're working with marketing to get them packed up and community standards to get them packed up. And with community standards, we did get a large donation from, where did we get that from? Salvation Army, and I worked with them today. And I believe Trustee Abraham had something to do with that. So thank you. We have lots of boxes, and we will store them and get them organized. So when the students get back in the fall, they will have a lot of material to use as needed. That's what I have. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Now, resolutions. First one is approve the retrenchment review decisions. Michelle?
Yes, thank you. Kathy, it looks like your screen is still up. There we go. Thank you. The first resolution that you have there is regarding retrenchment decisions. And you'll recall last month we asked you to authorize President and I to review the retrenchment decisions that were implemented last December. Since that time, President and I has completed that review with the input of the cabinet and reviewed every position, and is recommending the reinstatement of 9 of those positions that were determined to be most essential to supporting the mission and the future vitality of the college. Are there any questions about this one?
Just one, Michelle. This is Jeff. How many did we retrench in total initially?
There were 16 positions that were eliminated.
Okay, and so we're going to reinstitute 9 of those?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, now do we approve the 2021 management confidential salary adjustments?
Yeah, that is the next resolution that you have in the packet, and this is for management confidential employees. The financial picture on which management confidential salaries were based last September has changed since that point in time. And based on the improved financial picture, we are recommending that we reinstate the cabinet officers' salaries, as well as implement a 3% increase for management confidential employees effective September 1st, 2020. The salary schedule will be incorporated into the operating budget.
Any questions?
And Michelle,
No, I guess
that makes everybody whole.
I'm sorry, I
I'm
couldn't
sorry,
hear
Steve.
that.
Go ahead, George.
Maybe I apologize if I cut in, Steve. The mute might not have gone off in time. This makes all of those staff whole. Is that correct?
That's right. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. Decisions in the fall were made under one set of projections, and being that those projections have since changed, we want everyone to be as whole as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was simply going to add to that the shared sacrifice that and leadership that was demonstrated early on in this process by our president and cabinet to do just that. So and wait until, in fact, after the entire process has been complete, to acknowledge that in fact there are appropriate funds for us to address this. So I do support it.
This is Jeff. Just a procedural question. And part of it is because I can't remember, but when we did the retrenching of the positions and the reduction in the salaries, did we adopt specific resolutions for each of those actions? And the only reason I'm asking is rather, if we did, would it be appropriate to actually offer a motion on these salary adjustments and specifically vote on them as opposed to just generally consenting to them?
So Jeff, as a point of order on the full agenda, we in fact do have that on our consent agenda, is in fact to vote on that. So that
Okay.
is there. But good point. Thank you for.
Okay.
And Jeff, yes, those actions were also done in resolutions previously for those decisions.
Okay.
Yeah, the management confidential salary schedule you'll find in the August 2020 board meeting materials, and the retrenchment decision resolution is in, I think, November.
Okay. I just want to make sure that procedurally we don't inadvertently do it incorrectly.
Anyone else? We have one more resolution.
No, other than Don, if I could just jump in on this next resolution here, and it's consistent certainly with our management confidential and the recommendation of the board officers that we also, in President Nye's case, make him whole, to use Trustee Cushman's words, and also reinstate the reduction of salary back to where it was last spring. So Michelle, certainly feel free to add to that, but I think it's appropriate that the trustees know the charge was to the officers to go through that process, and we did complete it and made a unanimous recommendation.
Yeah, I have nothing to add beyond what Trustee Martin just stated. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a resolution to accept the auditor's report for FLCC operating fund and federal funds for fiscal year 2019 to 2020. Christine?
The resolution is in front of you to accept the report that was just presented to you and presented to the Audit and ERM Committee earlier this month.
Any questions? Thank you. One more. Approve a purchase from E+ for a refresh of the college's primary computer storage system and tape backup system. John Taylor.
Thank you, Trustee Cass, and good evening, everybody. It's great to see everyone. Before you is a resolution to approve a purchase for the refresh of the college's primary compute storage system and tape backup system. So you might ask, what is that? And so I'm going to show you. I'm going to do a little show and tell tonight. But before I do that, let me tell you what this is. The college's primary compute storage system and tape backup system is the singular platform on which all of the college's servers and storage are delivered. So Colleague, our student information system, which contains over 300,000 student records, all of our file storage, you know, when you store a Word document or a PowerPoint, all of that, our main FLCC website, our authentication systems, our network systems, our intranet system, all other college server and data systems that interface with external systems like Blackboard, Starfish, and more. They're all via this singular platform. And way back in 2016, we replaced that system, and now it's 5 years old. And now I'm going to show you a PowerPoint. Okay, can everyone see that? It looks like people are nodding, so that's a good sign. All right, so 2016, it doesn't seem like all that long ago, but there it is. We put in our infrastructure system with a storage area network system from Tagile. And there's over 150 terabytes of storage in that unit. And you can see it right in the center of this picture here, these 4 units. There were 4 of these at both the Geneva Center and at main campus. And I'm trying to change slides. There we go. Okay. Also, for the computer part where we actually have servers, we put in these new blade arrays. And that unit that you see below here contains nearly 150 servers on 6 active blades. You see these 6 units with lights on them. And what was really nice about that back then is we replaced 10 racks of servers with 3 racks of equipment. And it was amazingly good because we were able to save tons of money in electricity, cooling, maintenance, and more. So over 150 servers just on those units. That was way back in the year of 2016. And now, fast forward to now. Those units that were in the racks back then and have served us well are now obsolete, and the manufacturers no longer support them. In fact, they run out of maintenance support in December of this year. So we need to replace them, and we are going to use new technology called the hyperconverged infrastructure. And I'll talk about what that is in a moment. But we'll be using 4, what they're called our VX Rail Dell EMC nodes per site. So there'll be 4 of these units at main campus and 4 in Geneva. And what hyperconverged is it takes all of those units that you saw before of storage, networking, and server compute infrastructure and puts them into one node. And it puts it all into a thing called a software-defined IT infrastructure, which makes it very, very flexible. And it includes the virtualized computing, hardware-defined storage, and virtualized networking all in one fell swoop. So missing from the pictures that you've seen here are the backup tape storage device, which still is useful. Tape, you would think, oh my goodness, that's so old. Well, it still is very good for taking snapshots and archives of databases when needed and required. And it also provides an additional layer of protection against data loss. This hyperconverged infrastructure positions us well with respect to supporting our remote operations and server and storage needs for the next 5 years, and is supported using funds out of revenue in the operating budget over 4 academic years for an amount not to exceed, I think it's $454,000, as you'll see in the resolution. And with that, I'll take questions.
This is Jeff. Just one question, because I'm trying to understand physically the structure of this. Will all of these be on site at the college, whether at the main campus or in Geneva, or are they off site somewhere?
They're all on site. Yes, there'll be 4
Okay.
of those nodes, 4 nodes on main campus and 4 in Geneva. And what they do is they provide a very high availability environment. So if we have a failure on main campus of a server or storage, we can very easily switch over to the other one and still keep operations going without missing a beat. Other questions? Donna?
John, I'm just curious what the labor involvement will be in this.
Actually, the upgrade will take probably 4 months to implement. And the way we will do it, and we've worked in consulting hours with the experts at E+ to help us move the production servers that we currently have onto this new device. And the way that will go is there won't be any downtime to speak of. What we'll do is we'll bring up the new units, put them in place, configure them, load them with a recent copy of the servers, and then we can update them and move them into production quickly using VMware and vMotion, a couple of software things that they use to virtualize servers. And it's quite involved, Donna, but it's a very stringent and common process that's gone through. Usually in areas that have these sorts of devices, you refresh the infrastructure once every 5 years. So it's not uncommon to do, and the experts are going to help us with us. We have a great person managing this move. Peter Vandersteer is on our staff. He has experience with this kind of thing, and I'm confident it'll be fine.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Santa.
Yes, Santa.
I am very happy to see that FLCC is going towards a Dell EMC product. Dell EMC is always in a high quadrant, the Gartner report. They are a leader in this product. They're reliable. Their customer service support is top notch. So I'm very confident that this hardware install, you're going to be very happy with it. And I'm very happy to see that FLCC is going with this product.
Thank you, Santa. When I was IT dean at Cayuga Community College, we had an EMC Dell infrastructure, and it was rock solid. And so I'm happy we're moving in this direction as well. Thank you.
I was at Dell EMC World just today. A virtual tech world.
Cool.
Okay, anyone else?
Yes, this is Rich. John,
Hi,
is
Rich.
there residual value for any of our current equipment? We trade it in, or does it just get recycled?
What we'll do is we'll put it up for auction, and there may be some residual value, particularly overseas. That's what we commonly find with things that we put up for auction. And so, Rich, the good news is that we will get something for it. I can't tell you exactly how much, but there'll be some return on it.
Glad that it's not going into a landfill.
Right.
Just
Anyone else? Go ahead, Jeff.
a quick thought or suggestion. I don't understand anything about technology, so I don't know how much value it has in the region. But you might want to talk to Mike Manikowski and see if there's any industries out there in our community that could use that. And I mean, I have no idea, and give them first crack at it.
Interesting thought. Thank you. I'll contact him.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, John.
Okay, thank you.
Now we have some informational items. First one, Dr. Abatis.
Yes, we are, we went out for an RFP for our delinquent loan prevention services. And we had a prior relationship with Ed America since 2016. We received 2 bids, 2 proposals, one from Ed America and one from Inceptia. And we have accepted the proposal from Ed America and will continue our relationship with them in terms of providing the debt prevention default services for our students.
Any questions? Thank you. Christine, you have the last 2.
Hi, we went out for a bid for our letterhead and envelope order, and the resolution that you have in front of you is to award the bid to Dupla Graphics. They are the vendor that we have used in the past, and it's to not exceed an annual expense of $7,000.
Any questions? Any budget transfers we need to know about?
Budget transfers that you have in front of you are just reallocation of funds to meet operating needs, put them in the appropriate categories.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Could I have a motion to adjourn? George, second. Barb, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate that. Trustees and everyone on the call, we'll take a 16-minute break, reconvene at 7 p.m. sharp. And we're still live streaming, correct, Rope? Rick has confirmed that. So yes, see everyone in 15 minutes. Okay, it is 7 o'clock. We'll give it one more minute. Just need to see a few more trustees to make sure we have a comfortable quorum here. Wait another minute. And we do. So welcome back, everyone. We'll officially call to order the Board of Trustees May 5th, 2021 Finger Lakes Community College meeting. And welcome, everyone. This is also our opportunity to invite you, the public, to share your comments. And we, as trustees, value your input for members of our entire college community. And we encourage your participation. If you do choose to speak, if you might please identify yourselves, and we'll provide up to 5 minutes for comments for each individual. If you are here by phone, you have the opportunity to hit *6 to unmute yourself, and then *6 to remute yourself if you happen to be calling in by phone. I don't see any current phone users at the moment, but anyone at all that would like to share their comments with the trustees or any of us gathered here this evening? Anyone at all? Seeing or hearing none? Yes, I'm sorry. Nope. Someone who was on mute and went off mute. Okay. Seeing or hearing none, we'll move to the really plethora of consent agenda items, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 to be exact. And with the wishes of the board or permission of the board, if we can take those as a block, please, a motion and a second to get those on the table. So moved by Don. Thank you. A second by George. Any comments or questions on the 10 items we have in front of us for consent? I know we've talked about these, but any additional comments or questions? Anything else that we're missing? Staff? No? Seeing none, all those in favor, please. Yes, I'm sorry, go right ahead. Nope, I keep hearing something. Okay. Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Aye. Abstentions? Carried. Thank you. Old or new business? I'll push that to any of our trustees. And Santa, I'm going to put you a bit on the spot here. I know it's been referenced in one of our committee meetings by Kathy and facilities, but I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. Your lead really was quite significant, and I don't know if that's even doing it justice with regard to the resource that you provided. So could you expand a little bit upon what actually transpired for everyone's benefit?
Yep. The Salvation Army received an anonymous donation of over $1 million of product. It was provided to a Salvation Army Corps in Syracuse. However, because it's so big quantity of items such as paper towels, paper plates, toilet paper, and hand soap, that they distributed it to all the Salvation Armies in the area. The Geneva Salvation Army received 24 pallets of items. So the FLCC Canandaigua campus, they are receiving donations from the Canandaigua Salvation Army. However, I'm in contact with Lee and Janine at the Geneva campus, and I'm coordinating efforts with them to be able to go and pick up these items from the Geneva Salvation Army for their pantry. It's a lot of items. I think you're on mute, Steve.
I know I've been privy to the trail of emails and comments from staff throughout campus and Dr. Nye as well, but thank you. You example, as do other trustees, in terms of the outreach in the community and all to benefit those that we serve. So kudos to you, and especially when the need has been so high. So thank you on behalf of all of us. That was really a super effort. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other new or old business? I'll move to the chair's report. I have a few items here, and one that's going to require our approval, and I'll read from it. It's a short approval. This is approving May 21st, 2022, next year as the date for the 54th commencement ceremony for Finger Lakes Community College. And be it resolved that the FLCC Board of Trustees hereby designates Saturday, May 21st, 2022 as the official date for the 54th FLCC commencement ceremonies. So if I could please entertain a motion and a second for approval of this date next year. So moved by George. Thank you. Second by Santa.
Second.
Appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? Dr. Nye, anything else you might add to that other than we all hope we're in person and we hope that whether it be one group or multiple groups that we're certainly underneath the shell in a robust fashion.
Fingers crossed.
I think that's the case. Okay, thank you all for bringing it to this point. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, carried. Thank you. Second is the proposed retreat and meeting schedule. It was put in your packet there. There is, excuse me, one addition to the actual calendar, and that may have already been included. Janet probably caught it, knowing Janet. Underneath retreats, August 13th is a Friday. We are looking at a half-day retreat on August 13th, in addition to the October of this year, February, April of next year. So. Yeah. I know. I see a couple of your faces there. You know, you're sprinkling your noses. I know it's summer and it's Friday. I'll bring the lemonade. How's that? You know, and we'll bring a couple lawn games. You know, not charts, of course. That's dangerous. But we'll bring something, and we'll try to spice it up a little. But for those that can attend, yeah, we've inserted another one, and maybe beyond what we had committed. So we have in front of us the committee meetings. The now 4 retreats, as well as our 11 trustee monthly meetings for 21 and 22. So first, a motion and a second to get that on the table. Please, a motion. And
So
it
moved.
looks like Donna first, and Jeff, your second. Thanks very much. Comments or questions? Anything that we're missing with regard to these dates? Seeing none, please put them all on your calendar. And first of all, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions carried. That's unanimous, which means we'll see you at all these meetings. You just said so. I saw it. Okay. Nominations. Trustees Astles, if you could talk about the officer nominations for next year, please.
Yes, I'd be glad to. First, I'd like to thank Barb and Donna for volunteering to be on the nominating committee and doing some of the legwork on behalf of the committee. And on behalf of the committee, we're pleased to report that all the current officers are more than willing to serve another term. So that would be Trustee Martin as chair and Trustee Geis as vice chair. And Don, you're there. Okay. And as a secretary. So that is the nominating slate that the committee wishes to put forward for the board to consider.
Thank you for that, Jeff. And again, this is something that we'll move and act upon, and if necessary, have further right at subsequent meeting. We'll do that in June. So thank you for the work of the committee, and we appreciate your efforts there. I'd like to move to President Nye, and Dr. Nye. Rob, if you could enlighten us with your report, please.
Thank you, Trustee Martin. I just would like to highlight a couple things in the report, and then some things that aren't in the report. I wanted to highlight the stimulus funding. We're getting ready to put out a charter for a group of folks in the college governance process to be able to review ideas and things that came up in the informational sessions that Dr. Orloff put out. It'll include 8 people, 2 people from College Council, 2 people from Academic Senate, 2 functional experts, a cabinet member, and Christine Palace-Neininger is our financial expert to go through the monies. And we're focusing right now on the CRISA money, the second stage of the monies, which includes $4.4 million of institutional funds. And I'd like to describe what we have done so far and what we plan to look at things to be able to put the monies towards. And I want to remind you that originally we put out that we needed some strategic areas focused upon from the college that came from myself and the cabinet. We even addressed it with you. And that included mental health, it included high plex technologies, it included digital infrastructure, and it included one other category that we don't need, which was additional support to students, because the ARPA or HERF3, the third tranche of monies, has $5 million additional dollars for students. And so we have worked with Dan Dupuy and Christine, and of the monies, I want to describe this thus far, that has been dedicated or allocated to the CRISA, $4.4 million. And it's $473,000 so far since the start of this fiscal year for COVID-related expenses, and an anticipated $250,000 more. $450,000 for high-plex learning, which will put 41 of the systems in our classrooms to be able to give the greatest flexibility for our students in the future. $489,000 for mental health, for telemedicine mental health, that you'll see a resolution for next meeting in June for things to be able to support. $400K for infrastructure, and then to adjust for our losses from the general fund of $372K, which leaves $2.8 million, or just over $2 million, for that stimulus group to be able to provide recommendations out of buckets of money that came from those sessions that Dr. Orloff held. So we're in fairly good shape right now, and where we're at. We have till December 31st to expend those funds. Then we have, for the additional tranche from the ARPA, the additional $5.2 million of institutional funds and $5.3 million of student funds to be able to expend after that. However, we have no guidance at this point how to spend that $10 million worth of funds right now. It'll come. We just have to be patient, but it'll come. And I just wanted to highlight that out of the report. And then I just wanted to highlight a couple other things in the report real quickly. One is, or just one out of the report, and that is the in-depth videos that are going to be part of PBS. Carol, Dr. Abatis, and marketing and a number of people have put together a wonderful plan. You cannot see the video yet. She'll kill me. But you're going to see the video very soon, because of May 10th it gets released. And Carol, if you'd like to describe a little bit the great work that's been done, that video is phenomenal, and I think you'll be very proud of it. Carol, any comments?
First of all, I won't kill you. So, but of course, we're very excited about the in-depth launch. The project began late last summer and has finally come to full circle to completion. In addition to the actual made for public television piece, there is a 5-minute commercial and a 1-minute commercial that will be part of our PR launch. Kristen Accardi, who is our Director of Marketing and Enrollment Communications, is working very closely with Lenore Friend, and they have developed and are implementing the PR plan, which takes off next week. We will be airing in 5 markets that we've selected. West of Rochester, east of Rochester, Finger Lakes region, and downstate in 2 markets in the New York City metropolitan area. We are getting 50,000, guaranteed 50,000 airings in terms of spots. And we will be getting a pre-airing schedule for the for the actual in-depth show, and then we will get a post schedule that shows where we aired, and it's on major networks, CNN, MSNBC, networks you're familiar with. So it was well worth the investment. The investment was approximately 25K. We never would have been able to do this on our own for that amount. Or contracting it out, it would have cost 3 times that much. So we're delighted. And it is a wonderful video, and it showcases our viticulture program quite nicely, as well as promotes the new online certificate that's targeting adults.
Thanks, Carol. It's always good to have some good news.
It is.
There was one part of my report I'm going to elaborate on a little bit. I said 2, but it's really 3. Had a really great 3-hour session with the county administrator, Krista Bolt, last Friday. Still have to get him out to our campus centers and to the Mueller campus and to East Hill. And we're going to be doing that over the summertime to show him the rest of the goodness of the college. Really, I'm enthusiastic because he has experience with community college in Washington County, where he came from, helped support Adirondack Community College. And it's been very refreshing that he already has an understanding of what the importance is of community college. And we talked about 2 things that are important for him. One, he wants to get an internship program going where we can get students that work to learn how to get to work for the county and learn about government, and hopefully get long-term recruiting for having great students that go on to be long-term employees for the county. And the other is working in the jail for helping to get education within the jail. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to be speaking at the Campbell Commission on how we can start that process of getting some educational activities for folks in the jail. Now, the state changed their requirements, and there are many people that used to be in jail that are not in bail because of bail, which is wonderful because people are in a better place. So it's a fewer number of people in the jail, but there's a different opportunity besides just those in the jail. And that is the large number of people that used to be in jail who are waiting for their sentencing and their court times. And so we have an opportunity, and I'll be presenting that tomorrow at the Campbell Commission, and looking forward to continuing that. Those are the things in my report that I wanted to highlight. A couple things outside the report. I mentioned that you'll be receiving a resolution for telemedicine mental health next month. You're also going to receive a resolution for an update to the rental of the Newark campus. We had a good negotiation with Don Lasher from the real estate company, and I have received a very good proposal for you to approve for the rent. And it only involves an additional 1.55% increase per year, a 5-year commitment. And if you listen to Deb Korsner the other day, you can understand there are some unknowns, concerns, challenges, and it's true. And so we asked for a commitment that was a maximum of 5 years because we don't know where education is going to go. But that 1.55% is very, very reasonable. It's based on a 10-year average of our CPI. And then also the rent starts at $320K for the rent per year. It'll go up 1.55% at the end of that 5-year agreement. It's up to $340K. And I'd like you to think about that for a second. Deb Korsner talked about she anticipates 86 students this fall. 86 students with 51 full-time, 31 part-time. I did a little bit of modeling while she was talking. And that modeling with the assumption of the part-time students getting taking 2 courses. So 35 with 2 courses each, and the rest full-time tuition. For 1 semester, that's $138,000. Now, you multiply that by 2, although you'll have attrition. That covers about 2/3 of the amount of rent. However, there's more. I feel like a Ronco commercial, and the more is that that is a place where we get rental aid from the state, and approximately 50% of that $320K is we get back in rental aid from the state. So you take that down to $160 in 1 semester. just based on what Deborah's talking about, even though that's such a small amount of people, it takes care of the cost for the facility itself. It's very important to be there still. Deb was correct. We've been trying, Carol's been working hard. I've been working hard to create a partnership with IEC, which has 650 employees right up the hill in terms of getting those folks involved. You have the PTech program that brings us a number of students that are important to us. So we need to be there. But I think it's a reasonable agreement when you see it. And I just wanted to put that in perspective so you realize that even come fall with Deb's projections, it's a pretty good deal. Any questions? Yes.
Can I think I misspoke. I think I said 50,000 impressions. 50
Okay.
for PBS. I'm like, did I say 50K?
No problem.
That would be wonderful, but not true. 50 impressions.
Well, you can hope. You can hope.
Yeah. My apologies.
Thanks, Carol. So I want to talk about the Newark agreement. I have a couple of shameless plugs for you all. And the first one is Friday night. It's in the coronavirus update for today. It's the Spring Arts Festival that it's put on each year with the musical and things that go on and display of the students' works. It's Friday night. It's going to be virtual. I hope you can find time for it. Our wonderful faculty have done some great things to prepare for this. And it's something I hope you'll take a few minutes and participate Friday night. Starts at 7 o'clock and it's a wonderful event. The other one, you'll be getting an email very shortly. The Viticulture Center has their wine unveiling and tasting on May 18th with their new label called Preserve that will be available for tasting, not testing, as well, following our preventive healthcare guidelines and safety precautions. And you'll receive a flyer in that here shortly. And I wanted to put out those plugs. And then finally, someone's on the line still, at least it shows on the screen, and that's Janet Carabell. And I need to thank Janet Carabell again, because we've already said a lot of our farewells, but she's been sticking around longer than ever imagined. And basically her last really true day of providing even part-time support with one caveat, hopefully still knock on wood, was last Friday. But she's here because she's still the board secretary. And I need to thank her for that and let you know that we do have someone to take Janet's place. We're just waiting for her to give her signature on the offer letter that was put out there. Thank you to Michelle and Patty for working that. And then Janet has volunteered to help provide her time and paid, of course, because we need to pay for her time and it's needed to help onboard Penny Hamilton, who has worked most recently at Hobart William Smith in 2 different jobs. She was the EA and board secretary for the Yates County ARC for a number of years and has some board experience, and looking forward to bringing her on board. But what I really wanted to say here one last time to my partner in crime, who I can never, ever thank enough, and my gratitude and appreciation will never, ever be enough for what Janet has done for myself and for this college. And Janet, thank you so much. You're going to get me all teary-eyed here, but thank you. And that is my report, Mr. Chair.
A wonderful place to leave us, if you will, before we get into our committees. But I know I speak on behalf of all of the trustees and echoing Dr. Nye's comments, Janet. So we miss you, and I hope we're not strangers and we have an opportunity to be together in person at some point in the future. So on behalf of all of us, thanks very much. Thank you very much. You know, speaking of celebrations, as we move into the committees, I think it's appropriate we start with the foundation, and Santa or Joan comment a little bit about Friday's past event with Vintners and any other updates with regard to the foundation, to piggyback on what Dr. Nye has already reported. So go right ahead.
I thought it went really well. I wasn't sure what to expect. It was a little crazy for me because I did the dinner at my house, so I was running back and forth. But, and I was very impressed when they started the paddle auction. I thought, ooh, how is this really going to go? Because there's different when you're there and people are watching you and all of that. And for any of you that were there, it was incredible how much money was raised on that. So Louis, thank you. Thank you to Margaret. Thank you to Bree. Very much appreciative. It was a lot of hard work and it showed, it paid off.
Well, and kudos to the trustees, certainly well represented with this group as well. So thank you to all of you that not only attended, but also were able to financially step up. That was very, very generous. Audit and ERM committee. Jeff, anything that you would add?
I can add. I can add something for
Oh, go
foundation.
ahead.
Yeah, I attended my first foundation meeting last week, I believe it is, and Louis did a wonderful job recapping everything, most everything in the meeting. Just a couple dates to be aware of. We did mention the June 8th, the groundbreaking ceremony. June 21st is Ravenwood, the golf fundraiser, and July 28th is the golf ball drop. So those were just some of the dates in case you wanted to put them, and you'll get notifications and reminders and whatnot, but in case you wanted to put them in your calendars now.
Very helpful. Thank you, Sata.
Yep.
Okay, moving to ERM. Jeff, anything you would add? I know we spent a lot of time with the examiners, but what about ERM?
No, there's really nothing to add. I mean, we obviously spent a considerable amount of time in the last month working with the college team and Bonadillo reviewing the audit. And that's where we concentrated our efforts.
Good. Okay. Thank you. And Don and Barb, the association, thanks for the report. Anything that you want to elaborate with regard to the association, or any highlights you might point us to?
Two highlights. At the end, we awarded Hewlett a 5-year contract for the bookstore, and we are awarded the food contract pending to AVI.
Great, thank you. Barb, anything else you might add? No? Okay. Donna, how about on a statewide basis? Anything NYCCT that you'd like to impart or share with regard to what's going on statewide?
Yes, very briefly. We had our board of directors meeting, what month is this? Not long ago, and the chancellor attended. This is the first time that the trustees have heard from the chancellor. Now, obviously, he started, and that was his only focus for a very long time. What I want to impart to the trustees is how impressed every single participant was with the transparency and the not just willingness to cooperate with trustees, but a proactive approach to work with trustees as an equal partner in being able to advocate for the community college sector. He obviously is very familiar with the community college sector because he kept pointing out as he would talk to certain people on the Zoom, would say, oh, at your college, you're doing X, Y, and Z. And when he heard I was at FLCC, he said, oh, your president is doing great stuff with the veterans group. I mean, he just had wonderful things to say that were very specific to each community college. And I think he blew everyone away. So I just want to let you know that we haven't had that level of interest in trustees being at the table, at least in the 12, 13 years that I have been involved at the state level. So it was, I think, a very pleasant surprise for the trustees who were at the meeting, and he has proposed a collaboration with us. So I don't have any additional information for you on that, but that is something new that we certainly want to take him up on. So as soon as we know what that's about, we'll pass that information along.
Terrific. Thank you, Donna. Any questions of Donna? Thanks for that report. George and Santa, Student Corp. I see the agenda from April that you shared that with all of us. And anything else you'd like to add for Student Corp, either one of you?
Well, I guess Santa can elaborate maybe, but they're kind of at a point where they're winding down and starting to transition, so they're introducing some of their new board members, and so that would be the one thing I'd want to highlight off of there. The other thing is that they are, as their legacy, going to be planting a couple of apple trees to honor the efforts toward the food insecurity. So maybe they can help to fill the pantries that we're building. But it was a very nice gesture. Santa, anything you want to add?
Okay, thank you both. Back to Donna and Santa for board development. Certainly a committee that's taken a pretty steep trajectory and some important work. What's upcoming board development wise?
Yeah, I just want to apologize to everyone that I really dropped the ball on this, and I'm upset with myself for not doing more with it. So my apologies ahead of time. I hope to be able to dedicate some more time for this in the next couple of weeks. So I'm sorry if I let anyone down. I will try to prioritize this.
No need to.
Didn't even notice.
I did want to say
I just feel terrible. I feel terrible about it. I honest to goodness do.
I think we have a nice foundation though for moving forward based on the comments from Mohawk Valley, where they were going to send us some of their materials. So Santa, we can get together at some point and make the list of the things that we said we wanted from them that we can get to Rob. Rob, I think you were waiting for that from us.
Now I have to apologize like Santa did. I did get a link from Randy Van Wagner. I traveled to Utica on last Saturday, and he sent me something early this week and I got busy and I forgot to send you that link. I apologize, and I'll have that to you tonight.
We will get there.
Apologies all around. Well, thank you all.
I apologize. I'm in Pennsylvania and I'm only half here.
Okay. Well, we have a student trustee in Kai, and Kai, if I'm not mistaken, this would be at least your last meeting before graduation. Is that true? And I know you're still going to be with us in June because there's still one more meeting, but we didn't want to miss the opportunity not only to hear from you, but also to congratulate you on your pending graduation.
Absolutely.
And I know that it's there are 9 of them, if you will, or such. And we congratulate you on this really incredible achievement that you're about to receive. So look at all the thumbs ups and comments that you see on the screen there, and certainly an applause all the way around. And so with that, we'd love to hear from you and give you a chance to report on student activities.
We're in the final weeks of programming and outreach. So there are some Student Corp events such as the Food on Us for Asian and Pacific Islander Month on the 11th. May 10th, Active Minds is doing a wrap-up focusing on seeking connection and support in a time of COVID. And the Student Corporation is putting together a graduation gift. The class of 2020 who didn't get to walk last year and 2021 this year will have a gift sent to them in a safe and healthy way of distribution due to COVID. In order to honor their experience. And then I just wanted to recognize the student group from last year and this year. The president and vice president of Student Corp exceeded expectations of the position by reaching out and engaging with the community over the summer when that wasn't really something that they needed to do, but they did take that upon themselves to do that. And thirdly, there will be a special election as soon as this fall semester starts for some of the positions that we're still missing. The student trustee position will be a part of this process. We're hoping that it will be more accessible in person. No eligible students have had the opportunity to really meet with or experience the board, but we hope that we'll be able to garner more interest in the fall and to orient potential student trustees. Jenny, Earl, and I have both reached out to people that we found to be good candidates, but it hasn't really come to fruition yet. However, we are both trying to ensure that the position will be filled. And I just wanted to thank you all for giving me this experience on the board. It's been a delightful year.
Well, right back at you. You can see all the applause and so forth, and it's been a pleasure, has been ours to not only welcome you, but work alongside you. I mean, you are the reason why we're here and for what we do. So I will say on behalf of all of us, if any of us as trustees can be a resource to you or Jenny as you consider candidates, I'm confident any one of us would be happy to avail ourselves to help in that process in terms of at least a perspective. So we'll leave that in the good hands of you and Jenny, but thanks again, and we look forward to not quite saying goodbye. We'll say that in June, but now is it Friday or Saturday that you're actually going to be participating in graduation, the 21st or 22nd?
I will be transferring without graduating, but I'm certainly excited for the people who will be graduating this semester.
Well, great. Thanks again, and we'll see you more in June. Questions of the trustees for Kai? Okay, well, thank you very much. As you know, we do not emphasize not have an executive session. I don't have any other announcements. And look how disappointed. Oh, there's Donna. She's pretty excited. And then we still have a 7 in front of us right now, is in 7:37 p.m. So since I don't want to bring anything up sooner, please, a motion and a second to adjourn. So move, Don. Look how quick you were. Thank you, Barb. You're right behind him. All in favor? Aye. Have a good night. Stay well. We'll see everyone at graduation. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.